job." "Why are you here?" Grisha shouted to be heard over the storm. She gave him a level look and smiled.
"Don't worry your pretty little head about it. The less you know, the better off you'll be."
Grisha repressed the flare of anger. Suddenly Karpov, blood streaming down the side of his head, erupted out of the companionway, slid across the soaking deck on his knees, and tackled Valerie. She screamed and pounded his head with her fists.
"What are you doing, you ass?" she screamed at him. "Have you lost your mind?"
Still on his knees, the beefy man gripped her shirt with one hand, slapped her face with the other. Blood arced from her cut lip. The small sound from deep in her throat jerked open Grisha's gut anger. Holding the wheel with one hand, he turned and snap-kicked Karpov as hard as he could in the side of the head. Still clutching Valerie, Karpov flew backward, and his head smashed into the fishing gear compartment. The door to the locker swung open as he flopped on the deck, spasming as he tried to retain consciousness. Valerie squirmed out from under Karpov's twitching mass.
"Thank you, Captain Grisha. I think he would have really hurt me this time."
She staggered across the shifting deck and hugged him fiercely. He put one arm around her.
"I owe you for that one," she said.
With a gasp, she was wrenched out of his grasp and flung across the bridge deck by a seething Karpov. The large man didn't even look back at the woman. He stood glaring at Grisha, rain and blood running down his face as bruises and lumps purpled and thickened.
"I relieve you of command,"
he said with a growl, and swung his massive fist at Grisha's face. Grisha released the wheel, ducked under the swing, and put all of his weight behind a two-fisted uppercut to Karpov's solar plexus. Air whoofed out of the larger man, and he staggered back 3 steps. Grisha kicked him in the crotch as hard as he could. Karpov doubled over with a moan and fell heavily. Grisha grabbed the spinning wheel and gave his attention to straightening the boat, which had immediately turned broadside to the wind. Pravda lurched sideways off a wave top and slid to the bottom of the trough with a crash. He felt thankful the boat hadn't rolled down the liquid incline. Seawater crashed into the open bridge, soaking it and everyone on it. Gear spilled out of the fishing locker and slid around the deck. On the other side of the bridge, Valerie pulled herself to her feet and clung to the railing, shivering. Karpov shook his head and swung from the deck to bury his fist in Grisha's stomach, smashing him against the bulkhead and knocking him breathless. Grisha slid down on the deck, gasping. The boat again put beam to the wind and rolled heavily to starboard, hanging for an impossibly long time before rolling back to port. More seawater inundated them. The bridge deck swirled with the increasing water the scuppers couldn't handle.
"Wheel!"
Grisha gasped.
"Get the wheel!"
Karpov threw himself on Grisha and hit him with 3 hammering blows. The vessel lurched in the moaning gale and crunched into a trough. Crockery shattered in the galley, and Grisha twisted his body and threw Karpov off him. He rolled over and pushed himself up, trying to hit Karpov, but couldn't find a target the few times he could put any strength behind his fist. Valerie grabbed the wheel and turned it back and forth uselessly.
"Into the wind!"
he screamed.
"Turn into the wheel!"
Karpov's fist drove the oxygen from his lungs again. Grisha crashed back on the deck. The heavy man straddled him and began choking him with both hands. Grisha stared at the hate-filled eyes in the bloody face. He dimly realized this was the first fight he'd been in since he got married. He felt his windpipe crackle, and he knew he was going to die very soon. The lack of air became more pressing than the pain. He tried to struggle, but his arms lacked strength, pinned under the Russian's massive weight. Spots swam redly before his eyes. Karpov lurched violently. His jaw dropped open, and his eyes lost focus. The terrible crushing at Grisha's throat eased as the man collapsed on him. The medicinal scent of vodka mingled with his last shuddering breath. Karpov suddenly rolled off Grisha and flopped on the deck, arms flung wide.